So I thought about taking you through my journey, my art journey. In 2020, I belonged to a group of women artists who created their stories, and I used a series of panels. You're often asked, how did this begin? How did it start? And so I thought it might be interesting for you to think about your journey while I'm talking about mine. It never got to be shown because, of course, 2020 happened and pandemia stopped the UTSA show from happening, so that you will see this for the first time on our stage today. So anyway, and so it's interesting, and you mentioned I was a psychologist, and so I'm going to talk a little bit about that too. But I want you to think about how you would describe your journey and where you're at and where you want to go. And so hopefully that gives you hope that things change as you move along. And so I want to start talking about first that we are a sum of our experiences, and that what you do a lot of, you get better at, right? And so I do believe in that Malcolm Gladwell 10,000 hours thing, but I also think that there are some innate abilities that we have. So I'm going to start with my childhood. And this is representation of when I was a kid. I was a tabletop kid, you can tell I'm not athletic. It's still not, but I loved drawing and I loved coloring. And I oftentimes used my family as a subject. I had a very close-knit family. And so they also were very supportive of my art. And that always helped. So motivating me to do more because I got a lot of refrigerator magnets and lots of good stuff was always in the kitchen. And my parents, who were not particularly artistic, my dad carved models of sailboats, and my mom was not artistic, but I had an aunt who was. So, not an aunt, I'm from New England. So anyway, we're an aunt. And so, but I also had a neighbor who saw potential in my drawings, and she was an artist. And so she asked my mom if she could give me lessons. And so I learned a little bit about perspective and, doing the whole thumb thing and learning how to draw. And so drawing has always been essential in my world as well. Helped me through getting a lot of extra credit in school, because if you could draw, you'd get extra bennies on your report covers and everything else. So I say all that to say that when you're reinforced for things and when you're supported with your family, that goes a long way. And so that was my little caterpillar stage in my life. And so I'm going to put this over here and just let it marinate. Very hard, by the way, to draw as a child when you're not a child yet. This was I used my non-dominant hands and tried to draw a picture of my family. So, rolling forward, I did major in studio art as well as psychology in college. And then I fell in love with a man who lived in Texas. And so I moved here, and I also had a very practical part of me that said, I can't make a living being an artist. I can't do it. But I will do it as recreation. And I knew I wanted a family, and I think women have to make that choice sometimes. If I wanted to be a famous artist, I couldn't have a family, and I couldn't have that kind of life. I couldn't do everything. And so what I did do is travel with my husband, and so I knew that I could take watercolors with me. So I took a lot of classes in watercolor when I moved here. He was also extremely supportive of my artwork. And so I started to travel with him, go to different countries, and I started to do watercolor. And I liked it a lot. But I started to feel like the tubes of paint in this bag very contained. Watercolor is one of those things that you can let flow and be crazy with it, but you can also get very tight with it because you're unlike acrylic and oil where you build from a dark to your highlight. You have to plan for your lights in a painting. So you want those to be the white of your paper. So it's a backwards kind of way of thinking about it. You are an observer of where the light hits things. Shadows are just as important as the object to create the object in a three-dimensional way on the page. And so all of those things, I would say artists are at least 85 to 90% observers. So just looking at things, thinking about things, how that affects you, how you feel about it. But I got to the point where I wasn't enjoying it. I would get a piece of white paper in front of me, and I had what I called as my psychology hat, I had white paper phobia. And so I wasn't producing, I wasn't having fun with it. I mean, it was really almost too much work. And so I stopped for a long time. Partially, I also had twin girls, so that also made less time for creativity. I did other things, but I just wasn't being an artist, okay? And so I put it aside, and some wonderful friend of mine who was also a watercolorist, and we would go out and paint the missions and things in San Antonio. She said, come to my studio. She said, you need to have fun. And I was like, what's that? And she said, I'm gonna let you do a collage. And I said, oh, I don't know how to do that. And she said, it's all right, just come, I've got paint. So don't bring anything. I just have everything out. And so we started to play with paper and paint and color. And all of a sudden I was having fun again. And I thought, this is what I was missing. In the middle of all of this, I got divorced from my first husband. And I thought, and I was still working, and I was still enjoying that. I never was sorry I made the choice to wait on the art, because the psychology and working with children and their families fed me. And I still am very grateful that I had that. And that skill set helped me in a lot of ways. And the artistic helped me kind of bond with kids and be able to share with kids that were not able to express themselves verbally. So it all came together somehow, which was good. But what gave me the joy back was play. And so now in my retirement life, I focus on color and boldness and taking risks and things that I wasn't comfortable with doing before, because I thought, what have I got to lose? I'm 60 years old. I'm maybe I'll never be famous, but I'm going to do things that give me joy, and then they give other people joy too, because now I'm feeling like I have that opportunity. Mm-hmm. So this is, of course, the monarch butterfly come to life in an abstract way. Yes, it's not a real picture. It's just the essence of what a monarch looks like, right? So I've gone from the caterpillar to the butterfly, and I think that the other thing that I've done that makes joyfulness is that it's not just my work; it's what God has done for me. So I moved from not being very spiritual to belonging to a church here. I'm a deacon in my church. And I talk to God while I'm working. And oftentimes a lot of my work either goes to donations for things. I'm working right now with an organization that is going to have a sale called Abode that does contemplative care for people who are dying. And it's a total nonprofit that it's free for the people that are their clients. But they're affiliated with hospice, and they get referrals for people who want to spend a few days in a home setting, be able to wheel out a hospital bed into a garden, to have yoga and meditation time and a very peaceful place for them and their families. So I love doing that, and I teach in my church. I'll be going to Vacation Bible School in Chivak, Alaska, working with Indian children, and our theme is art is God, you are art's masterpiece. So when I'm working on pieces specifically for people, I do pray. I talk a lot. Artists are very isolative sometimes. We don't we do get together and paint together and share and critique groups and stuff. But when you're in your studio, there is a presence there, and I do ask for Holy Spirit guidance, and I think sometimes I get it, and sometimes it's not yet. You know, it's always a struggle. There are days when it doesn't work well, but I do believe that when I'm doing it not for my benefit, but for the benefit of others and in service to others, that my work is better because of it. So anyway, so that's kind of the evolution of where I'm at. I work in a lot of different mediums, and I've gone back to watercolor. And I think my watercolors are charged and better because I've had that journey and been able to kind of bring play back into the watercolor medium. So, any questions? That's kind of it. No PowerPoint. I don't want to know about AI. That scares me to death as an artist. But and I have seen some AI artwork, and it just blows me away. But I think there's something really special about, and that it's going to take a long while for AI to capture, about our growth and experience and how that leads to each piece that we create. So I hope that that's the case and that AI doesn't supersede all of that, but we'll see. We shall see.
As your art shows to me, you talked about how your life in general became more spiritual or deeper.
Right.
Was art just a looking glass into that, or do you think it played a part in helping you process and go deeper?
I think what happened is that I kind of started internalizing the work I did with children to understand that I was a very serious kid and kind of an adult as a kid. I was the youngest in my family and had to be around adults and act adult, or they would say, get out of the room, kind of thing. Not so much, I had older brothers that didn't want their kid sister around and stuff. So I was not the kind of kid that just got real messy and creative, and so I think part of it is seeing that I needed that. I needed to be able to do it, and that the risk taking, I could feed myself as well as other people in taking risks, because I think at first you think you're perfecting your art, you're trying to make everything look right, look like the thing that you're doing, blend the colors better, do all of that stuff, and so you've got that preliminary technical stuff that a figure skater has, where you're learning the figure eights here, and so you then have to kind of break away from that and say, and it took me a long time to break away from that, to say I didn't have to be perfect. I'll often say to myself as I'm working on something, if I'm working from a photograph, well, Nance, the people that see it are never going to see the photograph. So that's a freedom in that, where I don't overwork things as much, because I'm not as worried about that. I know I'm more confident that my final product is going to be something that's going to be pleasing, and so that's been a good evolution of my work. So, and I think anytime you try different things as a creative person, that adds to your arsenal. So I work in encaustic as well, which is wax and fire. So you heat colored pigmented wax and create pictures, which is what the ancient Egyptians did on their the boards where you'll see portraiture in mummy tombs, and that's why they are so vibrant still, is because they're made with beeswax and resin. So I've started kind of working in that as well, and making books, and so just kind of anything goes, which is a great place to be at in my life now. So, and I'm remarried, so it's all good. That's good too.
Low torch demo next time.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Andy.